In 2035, NASA launched the Lunar Odyssey spacecraft on a mission to explore the Moon's dark side, an area that had never been visited by humans. The crew consisted of 4 outstanding members. Dr. Mark Reynolds, mission commander, an experienced astronomer. Sarah Mitchell, aerospace engineer, navigation specialist. Dr. Lee Wei, geologist, responsible for studying the terrain and collecting samples. Ethan Carter, robotics engineer, in charge of operating the autonomous devices. After a 3-day journey, Lunar Odyssey landed in the Shackleton crater, a mysterious area that had never been explored. As they stepped out of the spacecraft, no one anticipated that what awaited them on the Moon would forever change humanity's understanding. Sarah drove the rover to survey the terrain, while Dr. Lee collected soil and rock samples. But within minutes, they discovered something strange. The samples contained traces of organic compounds, something that seemed impossible on the Moon. Ethan controlled the exploration robot, moving it deeper into a crack near the Shackleton crater. The camera transmitted images of a strange structure deep beneath the surface. It wasn't a natural rock formation, but resembled an ancient metal door, buried for millions of years. When Mark ordered to open the entrance, they had no idea that an unimaginable mystery awaited. The metal door was sealed by a complex mechanism. Ethan used a laser cutter to create an opening, but as soon as the metal was punctured, a beam of blue light erupted from inside. Below the door was a long staircase descending deep into the ground. Mark led the way, followed by Sarah, Lee, and Ethan. Inside, they discovered a spherical room with strange symbols etched on the walls. Dr. Lee quickly realized that these markings didn't belong to any civilization on Earth. Sarah touched a control panel at the center of the room. Immediately, the room shook, and a 3-dimensional projection appeared in front of them, showing an image of a distant planet with massive structures and brilliant lights. They realized this could be evidence of an extraterrestrial civilization that had visited the Moon millions of years ago. Ethan found a signaling device in the center of the room. When he activated it, a voice echoed in an unfamiliar language, and their AI system quickly translated. "We were here before. Be careful. They are watching." The team exchanged worried looks. Who are they? And why would this civilization leave behind a warning? As Dr. Lee analyzed samples, Sarah discovered another hallway. When they entered, the lights flickered, and the door behind them slammed shut. A strange sound echoed. Something was moving in the darkness. Mark gripped the radio. "Everyone, be on guard. We may not be alone in here." They turned on the lights on their spacesuits, illuminating the hallway. A shadow swept by at the end. Ethan raised his laser gun, but Mark signaled to hold position. Sarah checked the thermal screen, but found no biological signs. "Could it just be an illusion?" she whispered. They continued forward and entered a room full of machinery, all still operating. On a glowing screen, images of distant galaxies were displayed. Dr. Lee touched the control interface, and another door unexpectedly opened. A blue light flooded the room, revealing a tall figure standing behind it. The whole team froze. In front of them stood a figure over 2 meters tall, regal in appearance. Its skin emitted a soft glow, and its eyes seemed to contain the universe. Mark tried to communicate through the AI system, but before he could speak, the figure raised its hand and emitted a series of sounds. A 3-dimensional projection appeared, showing Earth engulfed in darkness. "Is this a warning?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. The figure slowly nodded. Ethan clenched his fist. "We need to understand what they are warning us about, before it's too late." Dr. Lee analyzed a timeline displayed in the room. If he decoded it correctly, the event this being was warning about might be imminent. The projection shifted, showing another planet, possibly the being's home world. But its city had been destroyed, and the sky was covered by thick, black smoke. The figure pointed at that image, then switched to Earth on the astronomical map. "We've failed. You must stop it." Sarah checked the data. According to their analysis, An unknown celestial body was speeding toward Earth at an immense velocity. It might be the disaster that had destroyed this extraterrestrial civilization. Mark immediately ordered a return to the Lunar Odyssey. They needed to bring this information back to NASA as soon as possible. But as they turned back, a shrill sound rang out. The base's security system had been activated. The main door was sealed. A force field now enveloped the entire base. Ethan tried to hack into the system, while Dr. Lee discovered a hidden exit behind a pile of old machinery. They ran as fast as they could. Just as they escaped, the ceiling collapsed, nearly burying the team. But before they could catch their breath, a massive metallic arm emerged from the darkness. A 3-meter-tall robot approached, its red eyes scanning them. "We can't defeat this thing," Sarah yelled. Dr. Lee noticed a glowing crystal on the robot's chest. It could be its weak point. Mark aimed and fired. The robot roared, then collapsed. The escape door opened. They rushed back to the Lunar Odyssey as the underground base exploded, a blue light erupting from deep within the Earth. As the ship flew away, Mark sent an urgent message. "Houston, we have an emergency. An extinction-level disaster is approaching." NASA remained silent for a few seconds, then replied tensely. "Lunar Odyssey, we have received the data. The impact will occur within a year." This could be a global catastrophe. They had brought back the most critical warning in human history. But would humanity have enough time to stop it? The darkness of space grew thicker, as the ship ventured deeper into the unfamiliar region. The dark cloud was drawing closer, and the light beams emanating from it grew stronger, making it increasingly difficult for the ship's systems to maintain stability. "All right, what are we going to do?" Sarah asked, glancing at the screen, her face full of concern. Mark analyzed the equipment, processing the data. "We can't leave until we understand the source of this signal. If we ignore it, the consequences could be unimaginable." Dr. Lee pointed to a spot on the space map. "I've detected a structure inside the cloud. It looks like a door, but it's not a normal door." Ethan stopped what he was doing, his eyes lighting up. "Maybe it's a door leading to another world, a place that doesn't belong to us." No one dared to question it. They had gone too far, and this discovery could be their last chance to understand the existence of extraterrestrial beings and the mysteries of the universe. "Everyone, get ready," Mark shouted. "We don't know what's ahead, but this is the only chance we have to explore." The Lunar Odyssey barreled toward the space door, preparing for their final encounter. But no one could have anticipated that beyond that door was an unimaginable truth, one that would change everything about humanity and their place in the universe. The space door opened wide, revealing a completely different area. The Lunar Odyssey plunged into it, falling into a silent, pitch-black space. Everything seemed to stop as time itself appeared to cease to exist. "Where are we?" Sarah whispered, unable to believe her eyes, as she gazed out of the ship's window. Before them was an entirely different space, no stars, no planets, no familiar objects. Suddenly, a faint blue light appeared from deep in space, emanating from a strange floating structure. It was a colossal structure, with flawless lines, unlike any architecture they had ever seen. The outer surface of the structure seemed to be made of shiny metal, reflecting the faint light of the surrounding space. "What is that?" Ethan asked, his eyes fixed on the screen, unable to tear his gaze away from the structure. Mark thought for a moment, then replied, "It seems we found part of another civilization, something beyond human comprehension." Dr. Lee checked the data, furrowing his brow as he noticed a signal emanating from the structure itself. This isn't just a structure, it might be a machine. A space door could be part of an energy system, or a gateway to a more complex network. Mark ordered the ship to move closer, slowly and cautiously. As the ship approached, a sudden burst of light erupted from the main door of the structure. The door began to open, creating a glittering pathway in the dark space. "We can't turn back. This is our only chance to explore," Mark decided, his eyes filled with determination. The team prepared for their journey inside the mysterious structure. They exited the ship and ventured into the unfamiliar space, their footsteps echoing in the silent void, where there was no sound or wind, only absolute stillness. But as they stepped inside, a powerful tremor occurred. A voice resonated from somewhere, cutting through the silent atmosphere. "Welcome, strangers. You have opened the door to ancient secrets. But to survive, you must pay the price." The team stood frozen, unable to understand what was happening. A heavy, cold feeling spread through the space. And from that very space, a massive figure began to emerge, its shape hazy yet terrifying. The team stood still, unable to move as the massive figure slowly took shape before them. Though the details were unclear, its presence made the surrounding space feel dense and threatening. A cold sensation, as if the entire universe was watching them, filled the air. "We can't stand still forever. We have to act," Mark shouted, but just as he was about to move, the mysterious voice echoed again. "Only those who understand the truth can move forward. The rest of you will be erased, like those lost in space." Sarah clenched her fists, looking at the equipment around her. "We've come this far, we can't go back. But if we don't know what to do, we'll lose everything." Dr. Lee stepped forward, his eyes filled with determination. "We received information from the signal. This might be a challenge set by this civilization. A form of test." Ethan looked at the bright wall in front of him, where the light was slowly intensifying, forming the shape of a gate. "This gate, it could lead us to where we need to go. But it could also be a trap. How can we be sure this isn't the end?" Mark looked up, then made a decision. "Either way, we've come too far. There's no turning back." The bright wall suddenly shifted, forming a massive door, opening into a strange corridor of light. A sound echoed through the space, like a deep laugh, vibrating in their very minds. "Pass through this gate, and you will face the truth. It's something you cannot avoid." The group exchanged glances once more. No one said a word, but they knew there was no other choice. This was the only path. The four of them stepped through the door, rushing into a dark corridor, where strange images began to appear on the walls around them. Images of ancient civilizations, wars, evolution, and finally, destruction. "Is this a warning?" Sarah whispered. Dr. Lee nodded. "Perhaps what we're facing is the legacy of a civilization that once existed, and was destroyed by irreparable mistakes." The deeper they went, the heavier the space around them felt. At the end of the corridor, a massive door appeared, firmly shut, like the final barrier. "This is where we need to be," Mark said. "But how do we open this door?" Ethan asked, his eyes filled with worry. Dr. Lee stepped closer, his hand touching the wall, sensing a powerful vibration from behind it. "Maybe we have to do something to prove that we understand. A decision that requires sacrifice." Mark turned to look at everyone. "We have to do this. For humanity, for everything we've learned and discovered." The group stood still, ready to face the unknown beyond that door. When Mark placed his hand on the massive wall in front of them, a wave of energy began to radiate from the point of contact. The entire space around them shook. Light streaks from the surrounding walls began to flicker, creating strange images, like memories buried deep in time. "What are we doing?" Sarah anxiously looked at the instruments, as the ship's systems suddenly reacted in an unusual way. "This could be the final trial," Dr. Lee whispered, gripping tightly. "A wake-up call from something we cannot comprehend." The wall slowly opened, revealing an entirely new space within. As the last door fully opened, they stepped into a vast chamber, with a strange structure in the center. It was a gigantic sphere, glowing from within, with moving characters and images along its surface. The characters and images appeared to come from an entirely alien civilization. "What is this?" Ethan asked, his eyes full of confusion. Dr. Lee stepped closer, examining the characters on the surface of the sphere. "This could be a message from this civilization, a warning, or an explanation of why they vanished." Sarah stood near a wall, where the light from the sphere reflected, leaving faint traces. But why are we receiving this message? Will we truly understand it? Suddenly, the gigantic sphere emitted a loud sound, then opened a door within it. A blinding beam of light cut through the dark space, illuminating the entire room. We can't stand here any longer. This is our only chance to understand what's happening, Mark said decisively, his gaze firm. The group moved closer to the door that had just opened, unsure of what would happen with the next step. They had entered an unexplored space, facing secrets that could completely change the world as they knew it. As they stepped through the door, the space around them rapidly changed. Images, messages, began to display before their eyes, as if transmitting everything this civilization had ever experienced. They all felt a stirring, something vast and mysterious. Horrible images of destruction, but also the final pieces of truth about their existence in the universe. A voice echoed through the space, as though coming from the very sphere before them. We have found the answer, but the question remains. Are you ready to face it? The group stood still, filled with both worry and hope. They knew that this adventure was not only about exploring the moon, but also about understanding themselves and what they would leave behind for the world. The silence enveloped the space, as if everything was stopping to listen to the answer they were about to receive. Images, characters on the light wall continued to change, as if all the universe's secrets were being revealed right before their eyes. We are ready to face the question, Mark replied, his voice firm, but revealing a hint of tension in his mind. He turned to his teammates and continued, nothing can change the truth now. The mysterious voice from the giant sphere spoke again, this time clear and powerful. You are not the first beings to come to this gate. Many civilizations before you have arrived, but they could not understand the message. And thus, they vanished. But you may change everything. A powerful beam of light radiated from the sphere, creating a large image before the group, an ancient planet, full of life, but also full of destruction. The creatures that had once lived there were now mere remnants, and the civilization had collapsed due to irreparable mistakes. We were not the first beings, Sarah muttered, her eyes wide, unable to believe what she was seeing. What we know about the universe, it's all part of a vicious cycle. The voice continued, your civilization has started down the path we once followed. You are heading toward the point where everything will end. But if you understand the truth, you may change it. This world will never be the same. You will face decisions from which there is no turning back. The voice sent its final warnings. Ethan stepped forward, his gaze determined. Then what is the truth? What must we do to avoid ending up like those civilizations? The sphere emitted a loud noise, and then a final image appeared before them. It was an image of a world being destroyed, with meteors crashing into the planet, wiping out all life. But within that picture, there was an escape, a glimmer of light, a path humanity could take. What you need to understand is that life and death are not separate concepts. They exist simultaneously, and you must learn how to use them to regenerate, not just for yourselves, but for the entire universe. Use the knowledge you've gathered to change the future. Each word, each sentence felt like an unmistakable message, demanding they face themselves and the difficult choices ahead. Mark looked around, his mind full of questions, pieces he had yet to fully comprehend. What do we do next? The voice from the sphere replied seriously, you can return to your world, carrying this knowledge with you. But the truth is, not everyone will understand, and not everyone will be ready to change. Our warning is for those who dare to face it. A moment of silence passed, as the explorers stood there, feeling the great responsibility weighing on their shoulders. We are ready, Mark said, his gaze unwavering. No matter what, we will return and share this truth. Because nothing is more important than saving the future of humanity. The final door opened, and they stepped through, back into the Lunar Odyssey, carrying with them profound insights, and a renewed determination to face the great challenges ahead. As the Lunar Odyssey departed from the mysterious space, the atmosphere on the ship seemed heavier than ever. The group remained silent, each person lost in their own thoughts about what they had just witnessed. The messages from the alien civilization, the truth about life and death, the difficult choices they would have to face in the future, these things weighed heavily on their minds. Sarah was the first to break the silence. What do you think we'll do with what we know? Will humanity be ready to face this truth? Ethan lowered his head, his eyes still filled with doubt. It won't be easy. If we tell everyone that one day humanity might destroy itself, will they believe it? And if they do, will they have the courage to change? Mark stood near the window, looking out into the endless space. I don't know. But we can't hide the truth. If we don't share it, we'll only repeat the mistakes of the civilizations before us. We've seen the price they paid. Dr. Lee, who had been silent throughout the journey, finally spoke up. We have to prepare for both possibilities. If we announce what we know, there may be people who want to change, but there will also be those who refuse to accept it. Major decisions will need to be made. I agree, Sarah said, her gaze resolute. But one thing is clear, we can't go back now. The door has been opened and we've stepped through. We will have to live with these decisions. As the ship began to return to Earth's orbit, everyone realized that this journey was not just about exploring space. It had become a search for the nature of humanity, for the purpose of human existence in this vast universe. A sense of overwhelming anxiety and anticipation filled the air. The group knew that there was no turning back, no way to undo what they had learned. Every next step would be into the unknown, and there would be consequences they could not foresee. But one thing was certain, when they returned, the world would never be the same. What they brought back would change everything. When Lunar Odyssey landed on Earth, everything seemed to be returning to normal, but only those in the team understood that the world had changed forever. They stepped out of the spacecraft, the bright sunlight shining on their faces. The fresh air, the safety of Earth, but within them, the anxiety still lingered. Upon returning to the NASA center, they were greeted by colleagues, officials, and leaders from other nations. People applauded, but no one knew that these very people would have to face the horrifying truth that the team had brought back. Mark stepped up to the podium, his gaze resolute. We have found something on the moon. Things that we cannot explain, but one thing is certain, we cannot remain silent. Past civilizations fell due to their own mistakes. And if we do not change, we will follow that same path. The room fell silent. The officials and leaders exchanged worried glances. Sarah stood beside him, unable to believe what was happening. We did not just bring back information about the moon, Mark continued, but a warning. A warning that destruction could come from within us if we do not change the way we live, think, and face the future. Ethan spoke up, adding, past civilizations fell, because they did not realize they had gone too far. They believed they could control everything, but they failed to control themselves. Dr. Lee sighed and spoke in a somber tone. I know not everyone will be ready to accept this. But we have seen what happens when a civilization does not understand its limits. This could be our end if we do not make immediate changes. The officials and leaders exchanged glances, unspoken questions hanging in the air. They had to make a decision not just for one civilization, but for the survival of humanity itself. Mark looked at everyone. We must choose between destruction and rebirth. The world we know will no longer be the same. The decisions we make today will shape the future of humankind. A few seconds passed, then one of the leaders spoke up, their voice heavy. What you're saying will change everything. But do we have the strength to face it? Mark nodded. We will have to learn to change, starting now. There is no time for hesitation. But the tension wasn't just in the meeting room. The world outside, the people and other nations, were still unaware of the change. Scientists, leaders, and even ordinary citizens would face a question they were not prepared for. Do we have the courage to change ourselves and our future? The story of the Lunar Odyssey team was not just about the moon. It was about humanity, evolution, and the choice between death and rebirth. The world was now immersed in a tense silence. The information the Lunar Odyssey team brought back had become the center of every debate, from political meetings to bustling streets. Everyone knew that a big change was coming, but no one was truly prepared to face it. Questions about the future, about the survival and death of humankind, were no longer just the explorers' problem. After returning, Mark and the team received constant attention from the media. Meetings, interviews, and discussions on how to deal with the warning from the alien civilization made the atmosphere heavy. That day, a global meeting was held at the United Nations. Leaders from around the world, experts, scientists, and representatives from international organizations were present. Everyone knew that this was a pivotal moment. A new world was about to be formed, and they had to choose the path they would take. Mark stood in the middle of the meeting room, his eyes glowing with determination. We have seen what happened to past civilizations. They were too confident, not realizing they could not control themselves. And now, we must face this choice. Continue down the old path and self-destruct, or change, be reborn, and protect our future. Whispers spread throughout the room. Participants began to argue fervently, but no one could deny the truth that Mark and the explorers had brought back. They knew that change could not happen immediately, and there would be many challenges and opposition along the way. Dr. Lee, with the wisdom of a scientist, spoke up. We cannot just look at the past and blame it. What is important is that we find a way to adjust our behavior before it's too late. Technology, the environment, and how we live must be redefined. We must figure out how to grow without repeating past mistakes. Ethan added, his voice full of concern. The problem is not just with technology or the environment. It's also about how we treat each other. Greed, desire, and discrimination have harmed past civilizations. If we don't learn to live peacefully and cooperate, all will be in vain. Sarah, who always carried hope, added, we cannot change immediately, but we can start with small steps. Education, awareness, and unity can be the key. The important thing is that we must be determined. The meeting continued with high tension, but also filled with hope. Leaders began discussing global strategies, how to adjust policies and laws to protect the planet and humanity. But it wasn't simple, as not everyone was ready to accept such a massive change. One undeniable thing was that the world was entering a new era. The decisions made today would determine the fate of humanity for centuries to come. And no matter what path they chose, everyone knew there was no turning back. When the meeting ended, Mark and the explorers stepped out of the room, their hearts heavy with the responsibility they had just taken on. The future was no longer an abstract concept, but a massive challenge that required determination and courage. We did it, Sarah said, but her voice carried an underlying anxiety. But is the world ready to listen? Mark turned around, his eyes bright. If we don't do it, then who will? If not now, then when? And with that question, the journey of the Lunar Odyssey team didn't just end on the moon. It opened a new chapter where they were no longer just explorers, but pioneers of a global revolution. After the crucial meeting at the United Nations, the world began to move. Dialogues were held, new strategies were deployed, and great challenges awaited ahead. But everyone understood that there was no going back, no time to hesitate. Change was inevitable. Mark and the Lunar Odyssey team became the leaders of this revolution. They were not just space explorers. They were the bearers of a powerful message to humankind. Speeches, meetings, and discussions continued without end. Everyone, from scientists to politicians, from activists to the public, began to realize that the future of Earth depended on the decisions they made right now. Sarah and Ethan spent much of their time participating in educational projects, raising awareness about the necessity of protecting the environment, global cooperation, and building a sustainable civilization. Both understood that significant change couldn't happen overnight, but they also recognized that every small action contributed to the global transformation. Meanwhile, Dr. Lee focused on researching new technologies, seeking ways for humanity to use its inventions sustainably without harming the planet. She joined international research teams, collaborating with experts worldwide to develop alternative energy solutions, improve production, and conserve resources. Mark, as the leader, began building a global cooperative platform where countries could share knowledge, technology, and strategies in the effort to save the planet. However, it was inevitable that there would be opposition from conservative forces, those who wished to maintain the current state for short-term gain. Mark faced immense pressure and great challenges, as they fought not only to protect Earth, but also to safeguard the ideals of a better future. Yet, with each passing day, small but significant progress began to take shape. Nations began cooperating in sharing resources and technologies. New initiatives were introduced to protect the environment and mitigate the impact of climate change. Non-governmental organizations and civil society groups also joined in the process, but not everyone was ready to accept such a vast change. One day, when Mark and his team were attending an international meeting in New York, they received a communication from NASA. Experts had reported that the data collected from the moon still contained many details yet to be explored. They had discovered a series of signals that could be related to other extraterrestrial civilizations, beings that might be monitoring humanity's journey. Mark stood before the world's leaders, his heart full of determination. I believe this is not just a lesson about life and death. This is an opportunity for us to understand that we are not alone in the universe. We must cooperate with each other to build a better future, not just for humanity, but for all living beings in this universe. In the end, the journey of exploring the moon didn't just end on the surface of that planet. It began a series of events that would usher humanity into a new era, an era of cooperation, understanding, and sustainable development. What the Lunar Odyssey team had done not only changed the way we viewed the universe, but also changed the way we viewed ourselves and the future of humankind. The world had now awakened, but the real journey had only just begun.
After intense meetings and prolonged debates, the world finally accepted an undeniable truth: humanity must change. Not just to protect the Earth, but to prepare for the unknown beyond space. The data from the moon was analysed further, and NASA discovered a series of mysterious signals. They were not isolated signals but seemed to be a form of message that had existed for a long time, hidden within the ancient geological layers of the moon. This could be a trace of an ancient extraterrestrial civilization, or worse, a warning we had to decipher. The only side, he says, cleared to the screen beset with unfamiliar symbols. Mark stood beside him, deep in thought. If this truly is a warning, then we need to understand it as soon as possible. We cannot let history repeat itself like past civilizations. The new discoveries spurred a wave of change across the world. Governments collaborated more closely, and NASA, along with other space agencies such as ESA, CNSA, and Roscosmos, launched a joint project named Project Dawn, an ambitious plan to further investigate the mysterious signals and prepare for upcoming interplanetary explorations. Meanwhile, major tech corporations like SpaceX, Blue Origin, and private organizations also joined the effort. Smart cities, solar power stations in space, and other advanced technologies were being developed at an unprecedented pace. Ethan worked tirelessly to develop space security systems to counter potential external threats. We don't know who had left these signals behind, but we cannot touch risks, he said during an important NASA meeting. Sarah, along with her scientific team, analyzed the data and researched new technologies to help humanity sustain life beyond the Earth. She believed if we want long-term survival, we must expand beyond this planet. A year after their return from the moon, Lunar Odyssey was upgraded for a new mission this time, not just stopping at the moon but heading toward Mars and beyond. Mark, no one of the leaders of the space exploration program, stood at the podium on the day the new mission was announced. We have seen the past, and we know what we must do to protect the future. We cannot stop here. This is not just an expedition, this is a turning point for us of humanity. Midst the chairs of thousand, marks te amloged at one another, knowing that their journey was far from over. This was only the beginning of a new era, the era of space explorers. 1 year after Project Dawn was initiated, humanity had taken a major step in preparing for the next space exploration. The International Space Station ISS was expanded and upgraded into Horizon Station, an interplanetary research hub in Earth's orbit. On the Moon, the first permanent scientific base, lunar Netis, was officially operational. Its the ultimate goal was still ahead, the first interplanetary mission of humankind. NASA, ESA, CNSA, Roscosmos, and private corporations sich as spaced and blie origin officially anointed for the Day, a mission to Mars and beyond. The spacecraft would be equipped with cutting-edge technology, including advanced nuclear propulsion, regenerative ecological systems, and shields to protect against cosmic radiation. Mark, Sarah, Ethan, and Diolly, who had made a history on the Moon, were on to again chosen for the mission. With this team, they were not just explorers, they were pioneers of a new era. In the final days before departure, everything was meticulously checked. Scientists, engineers, and astronauts worked tirelessly to ensure no errors occurred. Mark stood by the observation window of Horizon Station, gazing down at Earth. He knew that this journey would change everything, not just for him, but for all of humanity. Sarah walked it beside him, smiling. This team were going further than anyone has ever gone before. And we won't return as the same people, Mark nodded. Online day, billions of people on Earth looked up to the sky. Inside the Mission Control Center, the world's top scientists held their breath. Odyssey day, this is Houston. All systems are operational. Prepare for line 10. Now. With. Mark tightened his seatbelt, feeling his heartbeat pounding in his chest. 3. Die. In. Line. A massive column of fire erupted, propelling the spacecraft beyond the Earth's gravitational pull. Inside the control module, the crew felt the immense pressure as they peered through the atmosphere, entering the void of space. Odyssey Day has exited Earth's orbit. All systems are functioning normally. Below, the world erupted in excitement. A new chapter of humanity had just begun. The journey to the stars was officially underway. Odyssey Day glided through the space between Earth and the Moon at a steady speed. Inside the control module, Mark and the crew monitored the systems, ensuring everything was running smoothly. The ion propulsion system is working well. We will reach the maneuvering point in 36 hours, Ethan reported. Sarah checked the data from the external sensors, her eyes widening as she noted something initial. Everyone is detecting a strange signal ahead. On the radar screen, a smash dot appeared, moving at a slow but steady pace. It's not an ordinary asteroid, Diolly observed. This signal seems artificial. Mark quickly made a decision. Send a greeting signal. If there is a response, we wind a WA to approach. Sarah activated the radio transmitter, broadcasting on the common frequencies said for interstellar communications. Everyone waited. A few minutes later, a signal response appeared. Ethan held his breath. We are not alone out here. The control module went into tense silence. On the screen, the returning signal continued to pulse in a rhythmic pattern, not a natural phenomenon. This could be a probe from an extraterrestrial civilization, Diolly said in AWE. Or an automated defeat from an old human mission. Mark shook his head. No. Our identification system can't match it with any known human-made object. Sarah analyzed the incoming data. The signal contains a immediate pattern. It looks like a language or some form of encryption. Sioild we abroach. Ethan asged, hi ses figed on thes crien. Mark considered. If this truly was alien technology, it could be humanity's greatest discovery. But if it was a threat, he took a deep breath. We mode in, bit cape a save distant. Be ready for anything. Sarah had listed the trajectory, guiding Odyssey dicautiously toward the unidentified object. As they got closer, its shape became clearer, a metallic structure floating in space, covered in strange symbols. It looked like nothing humans had ever built. My God! Diali gasped. This is a defeat from another civilization. Ethan checked the energy readings. No signs of weapons or dangerous power sources. It seems to be in standby mode. Sarah swallowed hard. Sioild we, toichet. Mark stared at the defeat, realizing this could be a historic moment for humanity. He grabbed the remote control, reached for the navigation panel, and activated the ship's robotic arm. Which the mechanical arm tended slowly toward the mysterious object. The moment its robotic fingers made contact with the metallic surface, a burst of blue light engulfed the entire Odyssey die. As control screens went dark. Then a voice echoed, not throwing any speaker, but directly into their minds. Oichiders. Why you haye arrived so late? The entire crew vroge. They had not just found an alien artifact, it had been waiting for them.